Thank you, Scott. Thank you for all the theory. And as of now, we're going to start hopping into some more tactical approaches to how we're going to get this stuff done. Do not forget a single word that Scott said. We're going to use everything that he did. I'm going to be calling back to it this whole time. And it's amazing because now the foundation is set. All right. So first, we're going to talk about our online store. And what I'm going to cover today, I'm going to start with mindset. Okay. So it really depends where you're at in terms of crawl, walk, or run, and if you already have an online store and how you've kind of, gone about building that, or you're starting from scratch. So if you are starting from scratch, you got a big job in front of you. This is a beast of a project. Okay. So there's a few different ways to go about it, but what I really want you to do is focus on the high impact moves at first. The whole is going to be greater than the sum of its parts. And sloppiness and an unoptimized website is going to be detrimental to your conversion rate and your performance, okay? So any kind of sloppiness is like astronomically worse than having nothing at all there, all right? Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about whether you should go with a custom build, custom design, developers involved, or if you can get away with just using a template, and I'll give you some strategies there as well. I want to talk to you a bit about creative assets, and especially right now. I'll just drop this all in right now. Assets are everything. If you've ever looked at a website template or a theme that's pre-built, it looks amazing, right? You go around, you're scrolling around looking for one that you're going to use and build. They always look incredible. And the reason they do is because every photo, every piece of copy, the fonts, all of the above is tailored exactly to how that theme should be used. And then you take it, you plug it into your own thing, you put some of your own images in there, and you're like, this doesn't look that good. Like, what happened? Why does mine not look as good? And that has everything to do with your assets. Okay, so I know Lauren's going to talk a bit more about product photography. I'm not a photographer, but I can give you some tips and tricks on how to make that just really pop. Okay, then I'm going to walk through probably stuff that you are quite familiar with, but I might have a bit of a new insight into those things, and that is site architecture. So the different kind of pages that you're going to be using. And in the further lessons, I'm going to kind of go after the big ones. And we're going to talk about how to make the best homepage, the best product pages, and all the things that need to go into there, because those are incredibly important aspects of your online store. And then third, I'm going to show you some tools and tricks and tips on how to optimize your site, optimize the different pages you have, and make sure you're making the right moves and the right data-driven decisions, because there's nothing worse than making a big change to your website and then seeing the conversion rate fall off a cliff, right? Just before we even plow any further ahead here, I just want you to note that you should be designing for mobile first. 98% of the time. I do have some students and some clients that get more desktop traffic, but that is almost like so rare now that you should be thinking mobile first. Now, let's talk about mindset a bit. If you walk into a store, let's say it's a shoe store, there's shoes on the floor, there's no pricing on the products. The sales representative is at the front of the store, ignoring you, sitting on the cash register. You're not going to be too keen on buying shoes, right? So the first concept I really want to get across with you guys is that it's very important that you put in the time to pay attention to the details, right? Fill out your product descriptions fully. Don't let people land on a product page that has zero description and just one pixelated image. Nobody is going to buy that. Trust me. The whole point of what we're trying to do here is inspire trust with our customers and inspire them to, believe that we are real people operating a real business and we actually very much care about it. So before we go ahead and spend any money on paid ads, I'll never deter you from doing that, but you want to have your ducks in a row. You want to have your things done, lined up. You want to have your I's dotted and your T's crossed, because once you finally start dumping money into Mark Zuckerberg's pocket, you want to get a return on that, right? So that's a whole bunch of what I'm going to be talking about. And then we're going to talk about ads at the end. So, each module builds upon the one before it. Everything that Scott said is going to apply here. Everything that I'm saying is going to apply in further modules. All right, so just quick on, custom dev versus doing it yourself with themes or templates, or even hiring someone to do it for, a lot cheaper. So custom development, the negatives, it takes a long time. There's a way bigger process involved. There's wireframes, there's designs, there's a lot of coding that goes into it. There's a lot of complexity. You need a lot of very professional people to do it well, and everyone says they will do it well, and then 12 months later, you're kind of back at square one. It's incredibly expensive. And third and finally, you're chained to a developer for the rest of your life, even if you want to do minor changes to the website, right? You're not going to be able to figure that out. The positives is you have full control and full customization. And in no way am I hating on custom dev solutions. In fact, I want you to end up there. Eventually, I want you to have a fully customized site that is professionally designed and you have full control over. But I just don't want you to think that you need to do that when you're making less than $500 a month, right? That's not the time or the place. Let's talk about the theme and the pre-built option, okay? So the positives are that it's cheap, right? It's fast. You can bang out, if you have all your assets in place and they're all good and you've done some writing, some copywriting, you can bang that out in like a day, all right? And you have control. So you're not chained to someone and you don't have to call them and wait 6 hours to get a response and then give them information. And then 3 days later, they come back and they've done it wrong. So you have to go back and forth. You can change it in 30 seconds. The negatives of this, however, is that you have constraints, right? If I know you, entrepreneur, you're going to have big ideas and you're going to have wild ideas and you're going to want to execute on things that might not be, in the theme's capabilities, right? If you want to do anything unique, you're probably going to have to check yourself. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. A lot of these themes and a lot of these templates were designed based on data, based on actual real life data. People shopping, people buying things, they're giving you the things you need to make sales. And again, as Scott talked about, we harp a lot on minimum viable campaigns. So the MVC, if you want to get up and running and not, dumping a lot of money and wasting money, highly recommend going with the theme approach. The other negative is if you are doing it yourself, there's going to be a learning curve. It's not just like hop in and drag and drop and everything's easy. They might say it is on the outside, but oftentimes there's going to be a learning curve. You're going to have to figure things out. And finally, the negatives is you need to have a ton of skills in order to do this, right? You don't have to be a developer. Absolutely not. Even though, some basic HTML is probably going to help you. But you do need to know how to write. You do need to know how to design and lay out. And, if you have photography already, that's great. But you're also going to have to be a photographer if not. And the layout part, we're going to cover a lot of today. We're going to talk about what the content is that you need to put in there. I'm not going to show you how to design things. I'm not going to show you how to develop things, but we're going to show you how to organize things. And I know Scott has already touched on that a bit. We're going to go a bit deeper. Takeaway from there is, unless you have really deep pockets and a budget to spend $100,000 on a website, even if you have an unproven product, don't do it. I would wait until you're doing $1 million a year, kind of minimum, if not more, before I tossed in. Because if I'm doing that much already, maybe the next moves I make could increase my conversion rate, could do a lot, and I still don't even have to hire a dev to do it. Okay, so unless you have the huge budget to get this done, unless you're incredibly confident in your product, you've achieved product market fit, every dollar of ad spend you put in returns 10, stick with the themes. You can go a long way. Now I'm going to take you through what probably a lot of you already know, but I want to shed some new light on that, okay? And that is just kind of the architecture of how an e-commerce website is put together. All the pieces that go into it, all the page types, and more importantly, all the important ones. And we're going to expand on those further as we go. First things first is the homepage, okay? So here is black hair. The biggest thing you want to take away, and I'm going to dive deeper into homepages in the next lesson here, but the big thing is the caveman test. Okay, so above the fold, anything that someone sees when they first land on their site, they need to know exactly who you are, what you do, what value you're bringing in less than a second. It's got to be simple. And one of the biggest things that I see people try to do here is tag in some quirky little slogan that they came up with that might be funny and might be unique, but it has nothing to do with their value proposition, what they're selling, what their offer is. Whether we like it or not, the homepage is probably the most visited page on your website. Someone types you in Google, that's what shows up. So we have to really, really work hard on dialing that in. And Another, hard part about it is that if you're lucky, you have one customer avatar. Most of the business that I work with have multiple customer avatars, and you can't speak to just one on your homepage. You have to kind of speak to everybody. Everything you do has to be super impactful. We'll talk about all the elements that we can use there, but at the end of the day, a lot of what I'm talking about here is brand specific. What works for, companies that I work with might not work for you. What works for you might not work with company B over here. And none of my clients, none of my students have exactly the same layouts. There's no one size solution that fits all. So you're going to have to try things, and you're going to have to go with your gut and go with the information that we're providing. Okay. Next big one is the collection page. Lauren's going deep into that because she works with companies that have massive catalogs. Big thing to consider in anything you're doing with web design is the size of your catalog, okay? Because this is going to determine what your collections look like, what your product pages look like, what your navigation does, how intense your search functionality needs to be. We work with one product sites. We work with sites that have a dozen products on them. We work with sites that have 10,000, and they're all very different, and they're all equally valid. One thing I'm a fan of, and as you know, with the CVJ and everything Scott said, is we love to resell. So it's tough unless you have a massive high ticket one product store. It's going to be hard to scale that. It's going to be hard to make profit in the end. But collection pages are incredibly important, really good for SEO, really good for displaying your products in a nice, we call it merchandising, just like in retail. On an e-commerce store, it's how you merchandise your products. How you organize them is everything, right? So especially with large catalogs, like you don't want to organize your products by color. Here's a red candle and a red shirt and a red pair of pants. Nobody's searching like that, right? You want to go with what is the most intuitive way for you to lay out your products. Third here, we have blogs. Now, probably blogging is not going to be part of our MVC. And I think the big point I want to make here is that everything has a price, right? And that price might be your time. So it's free for you to write blogs. However, it does take time. Payoff is a little more delayed. Like you're going to have to, work really hard to see any kind of payoff whatsoever. But it's a great way to, build your brand. When we talk about TBIF, this is all about the B, right? And people are landing here. You're driving organic traffic. They can be incredibly powerful. But at the end of the day, with our MVC, we want traffic that's on our site to buy. So yes, these are cool. Yes, it's fun to write a lot. My advice, if you're just starting out, focus that writing on emails because those are going to move the needle in terms of sales. Okay, another caveat here. If you're in the cannabis business or the CBD business, blogs and content like this are going to be your best friend, right? Because it's going to be way harder to advertise. You're going to want to show up on search engines for your content. And any way you can get there is going to be worth its weight in gold. A couple more things about blogs. If you are going to do it, you want to do everything possible to turn that traffic into a customer, right? So you need calls to action. You got to go hard with the selling. Not only are you providing value with the blog itself, but if they just read the blog, they're just there for the info and they bounce, you've lost. And sure, you can retarget them and whatnot, but don't let yourself, have the opportunity to lose people just because you didn't ask for the buy. Okay. Product pages are incredibly important for an e-commerce store. We're going to go ham on these. We're going to dive deep into what should go into product pages, all the things you can do. If you do all of them, it might be a jumbled mess, but you pick the ones that are right for your brand and the ones that have the most impact for you. Everything we do here is about high impact, right? Highest on the page. So we're going to talk about everything to do with that. And this is the last place that your customers land before they make the decision to buy, right? Yeah, they go to the cart. Yeah, they go to checkout. But this is the place where they're going to say add to cart or proceed to checkout. This is where you don't pull any punches. This is where you pull out all the stops. This is where TBIF comes all together in this one beautiful ensemble of value, okay? And we want people clicking that add to cart button. Of course, there's the cart page I just mentioned. There's definitely opportunities for upsell on the cart page. We want to increase that average order value any chance we can. The cart is a great place to do that. Besides that, you don't want to get too crazy with your cart. It has a very functional purpose, right? Checkout page, again, I know we didn't talk about platforms yet. We're kind of impartial to Shopify, or partial. And one of the almost benefits of Shopify is that unless you're on Shopify Plus, they're not going to let you monkey around with your checkout. And that's probably a good thing, because if they gave you too much power there, it's pretty easy to screw up. Like, this is a place where people's trust has to be at its highest level, at its highest heat, right? If you end up on Plus, you know, you can do upsells here too. And there's some good apps and whatnot. We won't talk about those today, but there is a lot you can do with your checkout. As long as it's customized though, you're good. As in customized, I mean your logo, colors, that's all you want. All right, finally is the thank you page. So they've purchased and the emails go out, the transactional emails, and they have to land somewhere. And I'm going to talk a lot about this and a lot more as we go, guys, but anywhere you can insert a video of you or of any kind of brand building that you can do, put it in, because we want to get, you know, the meat hooks in. We want the white gloves on, and we want to just be in the heads of our customers. Anytime you can put yourself in front of them and just show them, hey, you're real, you're authentic. And I'm genuinely saying thank you, you know, for purchasing on this thank you page. Do it. And there's so many more places that we're going to talk about how to insert those, how to bang those out. Obviously, there's an infinite amount of more pages that you can have on your site. Like, I talk about the About Us page, the Contact Us, legal pages are essential that you have on there. You know, shipping information would be a legal page, returns, all that. You need to have that. Not only just because your customers need to know that stuff, and honestly, I put a lot of that information on product pages themselves, but Google won't let you advertise without them, right? Things like that. You have to have them. You can have quizzes, you can have rewards programs, you can have a review page where you just ask, say you're a shop that has, you know, a zillion products and it's going to be impossible for you to get a significant amount of reviews on each product. You can get shop reviews where people, instead of just, you know, reviewing each product, they review you and your experience and your service, right? Just kind of like how Google does. There's obviously sign-in pages, registration pages, all of the above. I want to focus on the ones that are going to really move the needle in terms of sales, okay? When we look at the e-commerce tree of life, quizzes and rewards and whatnot, that'll come after. That'll come after our minimum viable campaign, okay? But honestly, you'll crush it with those once they come. But we just want to go for the jugular right now. We want sales. Tried and true optimizations. Getting the most out of your store. Conversion rate is, not everything, but a big part of what we do. Because you lift your conversion rate by 50%, that means you're lifting your revenue by 50% without having to spend a dime, usually. Okay? So let's talk a bit more about that. Just want to show you an example here of a before and after that can be done with a product page. So a lot of the information is the same, just displayed in a much clearer way, bigger images. Honestly, at the end of the day, images are like 80% of what you do. People use their eyes. People need to see images and video. I'm going to hook you up with a nice little product page checklist with a whole bunch of elements that you can use on your product pages. Don't feel obligated to use them all, and that'll come later as well. And just finally, and then we're going to move on, I want to show you a couple tools where you can really use to optimize not only your product pages, but every page on your website, okay? So there's tools like True Conversion, where they're basically heat maps. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Predator. That's what it looks like. But it shows you what people are doing on your website, like actually, not just the links they click, but like where they clicked. Maybe they're clicking titles, thinking they should be able to go somewhere. Maybe there's a call to action that you can add. This tool has scroll depth as well, which means figure out what is your most impactful content and put that up high, because what you'll see is that like only 25% of people are making it to the bottom of your pages, right? So that means your high impact stuff needs to be at the top. And again, that depends on what your brand is really good at. If you have incredible testimonials and a ton of reviews and people really rely on user reviews to purchase your stuff, that goes on top. Another tool for this, Microsoft Clarity, Hotjar does it as well. And these are really handy, especially when you're starting out, to help you make decisions. And at the end of the day, a lot of these little tiny movements you make might increase your conversion rate by a fraction of a percent. But the more you make, the more better decisions you make, the more that adds up. And at the end of the day, we want to just move that needle. And that is it for this lesson. I will see you in the next one.